On the 9th of May 1913, a routine inspection conducted by the Austrian counterintelligence service turned up a suspicious-looking envelope with thousands of tattered crowns inside, nearly 35,000 euros worth today. Next to the enormous sum of money lay a letter scrawled with addresses well known for their espionage activity. The name of the addressee, though, Nikon Nizetas, was known to neither the counterintelligence service nor the police. The sensational investigation that followed the discovery would seep into the highest echelons of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, shaking the very foundations of an already vulnerable Habsburg monarchy. Here is the spy scandal that rocked an empire on the eve of the First World War. And this is Crown Undone. In the spring of 1913, the Austro-Hungarian Empire, along with the rest of the continent, was teetering on the edge of all-out war. The European powers were constantly jostling for position, and the Habsburg monarchy, being so centrally located, found itself with no shortage of enemies. For countries like France, Italy, and especially Russia, there was no price too high for information on Austria's military designs. And soon enough, nearly all of the Habsburg plans for mobilization were passed onto enemy hands. The mustachioed, Lemberg-born Alfred Redl was the man responsible for Austria's pre-war anti-espionage. He'd been put in charge of the counterintelligence service in 1907 and set out to rapidly modernize the field. He created a fingerprint database and utilized radically innovative technologies like cameras and recording devices to catch the foreign spies threatening to expose Austro-Hungarian military secrets and potentially paralyze the entire empire. Redl had shot through the ranks of the Austro-Hungarian army after becoming a cadet as a teenager. He attended the prestigious war school in Vienna and developed a particular interest in the military issues that plagued Tsarist Russia. In 1900, a 36-year-old Redl was assigned to the Russian section of the Habsburg Intelligence Bureau. While little is known about his time in Russia, the Russians must have been thrilled when they discovered that one of Austria-Hungary's most promising intelligence officers was a homosexual, a fact that, if made public, would have been utterly ruinous to Redl's career. Even so, Redl excelled. Back in Austria-Hungary, he swiftly rose to the top of the Intelligence Bureau's counterintelligence branch, and in 1912, Redl was promoted to Chief of Staff of the 8th Army Corps in Prague. Taking Redl's spot as the head of anti-espionage was Major Maximilian Ronja, the man that would unknowingly become the final director of the Habsburg Empire's Secret Service. Ronja had trained under Redl, and he was hopeful that he could continue Redl's notorious work in the field, and on the 9th of May 1913, Ronja would make the biggest find of his career. When his team discovered the envelope filled with cash and destined for Nikon Nizetas, the unit devised a plan. Ronja decided that the letter was to be posted again to the same Viennese post office with the same addressee, and detectives were stationed around the clock to seize whoever claimed it. It took 2 weeks for a man in a grey suit to pick up the envelope, even though there were 3 detectives on duty, and a bell was put on the counter so staff could alert officers to his presence. Nizetas was able to evade capture and disappear in a taxi. The detectives, left standing at Vienna's main post office, stunned at the man's unbelievable disappearance, were left without any trail to follow. That was until the same taxi that Nizetas had taken unexpectedly returned to the post office. The detectives demanded to be taken to the same address that the previous passenger had been dropped off at. While inside the taxi, the sheath of a penknife was discovered on the back seat. Once they arrived at the Hotel Klomza, the detectives asked the management to find the person who had just lost a penknife sheath. When the guest appeared on the lower floor to claim the lost sheath, the detectives were shocked to find that the man who stood in front of them was none other than their ex-commander, Alfred Redl. After a cursory interrogation by military officers, Redl confessed to treason. The valorized head of Austro-Hungarian counterintelligence had been leaking Habsburg military secrets to the French, Italians, and most significantly the Russians for more than a decade. He had leaked letters, codes, mobilization plans, and reports on the conditions of Austrian roads for 11 years. Although the motivations for Redl to work as a double agent remain unclear, it's been hotly debated as to whether he was in it for the money on offer or if the Russians had used knowledge of his sexuality against him. Either way, the financial reward for his work with the Russians was hugely valuable. He was able to indulge in a luxury lifestyle far beyond what his officers' pay would have allowed. Redl owned expensive cars, bought several apartments in the Empire's finest cities, and kept multiple lovers. To this day, though, no one has been able to find out the actual extent of Redl's betrayal. As a high-ranking member of the Intelligence Bureau, he would have had access to an invaluable amount of information well beyond his area of immediate responsibility. While it is contested whether any of the information he sold to Russia directly affected the outcome of the First World War, Redl undeniably supplied the Russians with the details of Austria-Hungary's planned invasion of Serbia, which was then handed over to Serbia, who prepared themselves accordingly. Over the course of his time as a spy, Redl betrayed fellow officers and Russian agents, earning the equivalent of 3 million euros in the process. The day after Redl's explosive confession, military officers agreed to leave Redl alone with a loaded gun. Having spent his life in the Austro-Hungarian army, Redl recognized the impossible situation that he found himself in, and on the morning of the 25th of May, 1913, he committed suicide. That was the spy scandal that rocked an empire on the eve of the First World War. And this was Crown Undone.